Planet Mission Part 1 by David Claiborne, as read by the author. New chapters every Monday. The full novel is available on Amazon.com and other online retailers. Links in the description. Chapter 6. Polus Station. The arrival at Polus Station was uneventful. They were without gravity for just a few minutes, which they spent strapped to their seats in the observation lounge. Once the Arca docked, the station's rotation provided artificial gravity. Departing the Arca was bittersweet for Bo and Junebuck. It had been their home for weeks, even months. It was welcome for Waters and Jazzy. They could hardly contain themselves at the prospect of being in control of their own situation once more. Molly seemed indifferent until they climbed out of the airlock. She looked up and immediately returned her eyes to the floor. "Are you all right?" Junebuck asked. "Not again," Molly said, and kept her eyes pinned to her feet. Polus Station consisted of 3 rotating helixes, each with a diameter of several kilometers, connected by several pylons to a central core that spanned the length of the station. The transparent ceiling of each helix made virtually the entire station visible, Polus, the moon below, and space beyond from nearly any vantage point. Each helix rotated independently. The effect was like being in the loop of a roller coaster which itself was rotating within 2 other loops. The missionaries stumbled where they stood as something passed beneath their feet, not unlike a small earthquake. Molly grabbed Bo's arm involuntarily. "What was that?" Jazzy asked. "It's probably a gravity shift," Junebuck said. "Every once in a while the worker positions transfer power in the core to do maintenance. That can cause a temporary fluctuation in the helix's rotational velocity like the one we just felt. Most people become accustomed to the movement within a few days. Some never do and suffer a feeling akin to perpetual seasickness." "Perpetual seasickness, huh?" Molly said. "We all were tested for suitability to the environmental demands during our training, both from a physical and psychological standpoint," Jazzy said. "It's unfortunate that the administration would put someone who did not receive the same screening in an environment like this." Molly shrugged in reply, resigned to her situation. Despite their initial disorientation, the clear metal ceiling let in light from Polus's star and permitted the people working and traveling through the station a spectacular view. They could see people moving and walking about in other helixes, some of them upside down from their point of view. Molly looked up again, seeking to acclimate herself as Junebuck had said. "Oh, help," she said, and clutched Bo's arm tighter. "Try keeping your eyes on Polus," Junebuck said, and took Molly's free arm. "It will appear to stay fixed relative to our position. That should help with the disorientation." A woman carrying a large tablet with perfectly straight hair, white slacks, and a white blouse met them. "Hello, everyone. Allow me to be the first to welcome you to Polus Station," she said. "My name is Tegan, and I'll be your designated civil servant position. If you'll please show me your phones." The team pulled out their phones. Tegan tapped her tablet in the direction of each. "I have just given you access to the rooms where you'll be staying. If you'll please follow me." Several worker positions arrived and began to unload the Arca. "Will they bring our bags to our rooms?" Jazzy asked. "Of course," Tegan checked her tablet. "Dr. Beebe." "You can call me Jazzy." Living quarters were stacked 2 and 3 high along the sides of each helix. Docking airlocks punctuated the apartments periodically. "Each helix has 3 docking airlocks, so the station can accommodate up to 9 ships at a time," Junebuck said. "That is correct." Tegan checked her tablet. "Would you say your name for me, please?" Tegan asked. "Junebuck Kim," he said. "Junebug Kim," Tegan repeated. Something distracted Junebuck from correcting her pronunciation, and he suddenly turned from the group and pressed his hands against the station's transparent hull. "Oh!" he exclaimed, and craned his neck to get a better look. "Is that a P4 Whiskey patrol ship?" "Yes, the P4 is part of the equipment assigned to the officer positions on the station," answered Tegan. Others from the group moved closer to the window to see what had Junebuck so excited. "It has wings," Bo said to no one in particular. "It looks like an airplane." "What you cannot see from this angle is the cabin," Tegan said. "It is quite large and capable of carrying several passengers, or accused persons, as may suit the needs of the officer positions." "Do you think we'll get to see inside?" Junebuck asked. "I hear it's state-of-the-art. It has a titanium alloy reinforced airframe and hull, so it's supposed to be nearly indestructible, and it's one of the only ships capable of both atmospheric flight and spaceflight. They're very expensive." "How did you learn so much about our station? Have you been here before?" Tegan asked. "No, I just like to read," he said. "The P4 Whiskey is also armed with a computer-vectored turret-mounted 30mm railgun." "Why would you need a gun in space?" Bo asked. "It's just a precautionary armament for our officer positions," Tegan checked her tablet. "Missionary Bo Lee. They've never used it except for target practice, though I believe the official reason for purposes of regulatory compliance was clearing celestial bodies that might threaten the station. That made for difficult paperwork since the system has no asteroid belt, but never in an enforcement situation. I see you are a botanist, Missionary Junbuk Kim," Tegan said as she tapped her tablet. "Perhaps you could have a career as a civil servant position providing tours if your other position does not work out. Would you please continue? I would be interested to hear what else you know about the station." "Let's see," Junbuk said to himself. "The south terminus on the central core is where the space elevator will eventually anchor, allowing delivery of supplies and permitting transportation up and down the cable. Until its completion, however, the station and moon below rely on regular drops and shuttles for the exchange of goods and people." "So how will we get down to the moon then?" Jazzy asked. "You will be taking a dropship to the surface," Tegan said. "I was hoping we'd be done with ships for a while," Molly said. "Oh, it's an enjoyable ride, I can assure you," Tegan said. Molly responded with a non-committal noise. Tegan stopped after a few minutes and motioned to the facade. "Your rooms are in this bank of housing." She referred to several tiny balconies that extended over the walkway where they stood. "During your brief stay, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am at your service according to the description of my position." Then Tegan turned and departed. "This may be your last opportunity to use the Li-Fi for a while," Waters said. "So if you still have time on your bandwidth allowance, you may want to use it before we land on Polus IV. Colonies are notorious for having poor signal reception." Junbuk gave an involuntary shiver. "What is it?" Molly asked. "I was just thinking of calling my mom." "You don't want to talk to your parents?" "It's not that I don't want to talk to them. Well, I do and I don't. I want to talk to them, but my mom always asks questions. She always wants to know if I'm successful. I'm a missionary botanist for the administration, but it's not enough. She keeps bugging me about grandchildren, too. I don't even know any girls, women. I did not mean to be offensive." "Don't we count?" Molly said. "We're missionaries, so according to regulation, no, you don't count," Bo said. Molly pulled on their arms teasingly with the barest hint of a smirk on her face and said, "Maybe the regulation is more of a guideline." "No public displays of affection, please," Jazzy said and looked back at the three with a mocking smile. Junbuk hastily pulled his arm away and blushed as he suppressed a smile himself. Bo pulled his arm away, a bit embarrassed. Waters planted his feet in the speech-giving position they had all seen him take before. They turned toward him and put on their best listening faces as he began. "Take the rest of the day to explore. We leave tomorrow. Seeing Polus IV below us makes me eager to get started with our mission, and I'm willing to bet you all feel the same way." "Where did Molly go?" Waters interrupted himself with the question. Molly was indeed not to be seen. "How could we lose her? She was just here. There are only 5 of us," Jazzy said. "Maybe she just went to her room already," Junbuk offered. Waters cast a significant look at Bo, who returned a plaintive look of his own. He was eager for some free time. As if he had read Bo's mind, Waters said, "You can explore the station while you look for her." "I'll check her room," Junbuk said. "Being alone may not be good for her," Jazzy said. "Why?" Bo said. "It would be inappropriate of me to disclose the reason. It's confidential," Jazzy said. Junbuk hopped down the steps. "There's no answer at her door." "That doesn't mean she's not inside and just wants to be left alone," Bo said, sympathizing with her presumed attitude a little. "Bo," Waters said in a tone that asked for his help but also suggested that if he declined, that he was willing to use his authority. "All right," Bo said with resignation. "Thanks." Thus, Bo began his search. He would rather have joined the others. They would probably walk together, but this was his job for now. "So much for getting the afternoon off," he said to himself with a bit of resentment. Not so much towards Waters. He was doing his job as mission director. Molly did not have an excuse. He picked a direction and began to walk. Trees, plants, and even grass-covered medians lined the inner beltway of each helix. A combination of natural light from the transparent metal ceiling and supplemental artificial lights lit the helix. As the day wore on, Bo noticed that the artificial lights grew dimmer, simulating Earth's 24-hour cycle. A noticeable rumble surprised Bo. Was that thunder? He said to himself. A fine mist covered him as he looked up. He fled to shelter under a balcony as artificial rain fell around him. The plants turned a healthy green under the moisture, and his nostrils filled with the smell of wet dirt again. He pushed down his nostalgia. The rainwater spilled gently over the walkways, cleansed them, and washed gently into grates, headed some place where it would be processed and recycled. The station's residents apparently took little notice and continued their business. Some drove under the cover of small electric carts, others produced umbrellas, and others simply ignored the rain. It stopped within a few minutes, and Bo resumed his journey. Bo was impressed by how ordered the helix was. Without the regularly numbered airlocks, he might have gotten lost. He was both surprised at how little time it actually took to traverse the helix and dismayed by how long it was. The helical design meant that although the station had a diameter of only a few kilometers, each helix was several kilometers long. He was tired by the time he finished walking the length of one and irritated by the time he finished the second. He sat down on a bench, removed his shoes, and rubbed his toes beneath his socks. His feet and legs ached. He was tempted to ask one of the worker positions zipping around on carts for a ride, but his pride and an unwillingness to admit to a worker position that he needed help kept him walking. He was about to start on the third helix when his irritation got the better of him, and he said to no one in particular, "This is a waste of my time. We could have missed each other at any number of intersections. She's probably back already." Although reluctant to report back to Waters that he had not found Molly, he decided he had done more than enough. He boarded an elevator to the central core to transfer back to the helix where they stayed. The elevator door opened, and he pushed himself into the central core's zero-G environment when he spotted a woman with dark hair wearing a matching Mufasa jumper, anchored firmly to the metal deck by a pair of gravity boots. "Molly?" he asked. She turned and smiled. "Hi, Bo." She stood next to a young man. "This is Sullivan Jackson. He's an engineer on the station. He's been explaining to me how the core works." Bo nodded. The young man did not make eye contact and said bye awkwardly before floating off deftly down the corridor. Bo felt a flush of anger. "Where have you been? I've been looking for you all day. Waters sent me to find you." "He did? Sorry, I guess," she said sheepishly. "I thought he had dismissed us." She appeared to be genuinely sorry, and Bo's anger faded, but he resolved to remain at least a little annoyed. Molly read the change in his features and explained. "I couldn't stand feeling the hard floor below me and looking out at everything at once in space. I felt like I was constantly going to float away, so I came here." "I thought you hated zero-G," Bo said. "Captain Jackson gave me these," she said, and tapped her boot's heel with her toe. The boot clanked as it attached itself back to the deck. "There aren't many windows down here, and they're small." "So you've just been down here all day?" Molly could see the absurdity of preferring to spend her free time in a metal tube with little light and few people, and she shuffled a bit embarrassed. "I wanted to be alone, too. It's not that I don't like you all. I just wanted to be by myself with my thoughts for a while. We've been so close together for so long, I didn't think anyone would mind." "It's been hours. Forget it. Are you ready to go back?" Bo asked. "Sure." "Bo? What is it?" "Thanks for coming to get me."